You're listening to The Other 50%, a history of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. In this episode, I got to speak with Carole Angelo. She came up through digital production and very casually mentions that she launched Friends and Seinfeld. Oh, and also she started the writer's strike. But no big whoop. We talked about a lot of juicy things, and I think you will find, as I did, that she is a delight. You can find us at theother50%.com, and you can also go there to buy the Other 50% merch. You can find us on iTunes, Facebook, on Twitter at Other50%, and on Instagram at Other50% Podcast. And don't forget to check out my other podcast called The Other 50%, a history of tech. You can also find it on iTunes or on my website, and that's where I talk to successful women in tech and hear their stories. Okay, here's Carole. What is your job?
I am currently a creative producer at TBS in the TBS Digital Group, which falls under the content marketing team. So what that means is we create original short-form comedy video that gets distributed across TBS brand social channels, so not show-related. That's currently what we're doing.
Fun.
It's fun. It's been fun. We are currently undergoing new management and a shift in strategy. So the last 6 months have been really fun because we were free to kind of explore original ideas and meet with creators and writers and produce stuff that we knew would target our core audience. And the idea was to introduce the TBS fans to original comedy, to get them into the habit of associating TBS with original comedy versus Big Bang repeats or Friends repeats. Mm-hmm. Since, last year was the big relaunch for TBS in original comedy. They had The Detour and Wrecked and Angie Tribeca Season 2. And so going into this year, we were trying to kind of increase their social footprint with these scripted original pieces.
So, just so I understand it, you're doing short form comedy pieces kind of as marketing for your bigger shows?
It's more about marketing the brand than the shows.
Aha, okay.
Yeah, because very rarely did we use TBS talent. It was because there's a whole other marketing group that does that. So we were just really about, what writers and creators can we work with that are going to be able to execute these fun short pieces. Like, for example, for Thanksgiving, we did a piece called Generations Give Thanks, which was an idea I pitched to a writer to say, how can we talk about, Gen X, Gen Y coming together for Thanksgiving and what the different perspectives are on that. And then it went through like a gazillion drafts of a bunch of us figuring out the best way to tell that story. And then
this last Thanksgiving. that was a big one.
Yeah, it was a bummer time. But, and so then just bringing on some influencers to play those Gen Y characters and knowing that they would share it and get it out. And we produced that in-house and, it did really well because we're trying to target the millennial audience, mm-hmm. but also understanding that our existing core audience is a little older. So trying to find them.
Interesting. So these are really short form?
Minute or less usually.
Okay. And where are they on?
They're on all the TBS handles. So we have a YouTube playlist for TBS Digital. That's the TBS Facebook page, Instagram, Snapchat.
Everywhere.
All of that.
Now, is that always what you wanted to do when you grow up?
I wanted to be a writer. When I was I think when I was 10 maybe, I declared that I was going to be the president of ABC Television because that's where all my favorite TV shows were at the time. And so why shouldn't I be running that network?
Why shouldn't you be?
Having more Happy Days spinoffs. So I always knew I wanted to go into entertainment, and then I've always kind of been a writer. So it kind of evolved and led to an internship at NBC in college in the advertising department. And then I wound up getting a job as a copywriter in the department when I graduated.
So that stuck, what you said you wanted to do at 10.
Yeah.
They always say if you think about what you wanted to be at 10 years old, that's really where your calling is.
It was either that or veterinarian, which I think every child wants to be at some point. Until you realize you have to cut open animals right now.
Very cool. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Southern California.
So that was like a realistic.
My dad worked for a company that kind of was in the periphery of entertainment. Like he worked for a special effects company basically. So, I got to go to the set of Land of the Lost when I was a kid and
with the stacks.
Yes, it was so cool.
You can't see my gesture, but I have the fingers going.
Exactly. So there was always that hint of it, growing up and it was always exciting to me. And
so you could see it, and that was a real thing you could do.
Yeah.
Okay, so your first job.
The first job was at NBC in the advertising department, first real job. And I started as the receptionist, in that department. And then within 6 months, they had promoted me to like a junior account executive. They were set up like an in-house ad agency. So I was put in charge of what was then called TNBC lineup, which was Saved by the Bell and California Dreams and I think Hang Time, or there was like 2 other shows that rotated. Yeah, it was super cool for me because I was like the same age as, Tiffany Amber Thiessen or whatever. But so I kind of started doing that and helping. Obviously, I was still support for the other account managers at the time.
And what did that look like, account managing those shows?
Account manager was basically like you oversee the photo shoots for the shows that you're assigned and make sure that any print materials, you're kind of a project manager because you're making sure that the writer, the designer, and the, print production team all know their deadlines and the schedules, and then you're kind of working with the photo team to kind of, coordinate the photo shoots and get the creative approved. And
so you're doing all the marketing materials.
It was marketing materials, 100%. And then the great thing about it was that department in particular allowed me to interact with a lot of other departments. So I could definitely figure out how TV worked and how all the departments worked together, because I had to work with PR, I had to work with legal, I had to work with promo, on air, all of it. So
what a great experience.
It was a great experience. And at the time it was, actually, this is how old I am, but it was the tail end of Brandon Tartikoff and the beginning of like Warren Littlefield. So it was like a NBC rock star era. And they would...
Was it Must See TV?
It was it was like the start of Must See TV when I was there. And I would be able to, take these ads and go get them approved. Well, I would take like extra 20 minutes and just wander around because like Tonight Show is Johnny Carson's last couple years. I mean, there was so much going on the lot at the time that it was just magical. And I would just go walk around, and they still film game shows on the lot. I mean, there was just all kinds of crazy, Days of Our Lives filmed on the lot, all of that. So I would just wander around and take my time and see what was going on. And
so exciting.
It was a great learning experience because it helped me figure out, not only the big picture of how everything fit together, but just kind of what I was interested in.
Where you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was a great opportunity that came out of that because there were 2 male copywriters in the department, and we were doing a lot of movies of the week at the time and a lot of Danielle Steele, adaptations, right? And neither writer wanted to deal with it. So they knew I was interested in writing, and so they wound up kind of mentoring me as a copywriter because they didn't want to do any movies of the week. So I wound up doing all the movies of the week and most of the teen, stuff, which wasn't very often. But so it kind of led into a copywriter role, which I wound up doing that for years.
That is great.
Yeah.
So because they didn't want to do it, you got to have a lot more responsibility.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, at this point, had you negotiated any of your salaries? Or were you just, I'm so happy to be here?
I was terrible about it, Julie.
No one does it. Don't feel bad.
Oh, it was like,
that's why we're talking about it.
It was like I started there my first real job out of college, so just knowing I wasn't making like an hourly wage was like a huge win for me. But I distinctly remember going to my parents and saying like, you guys, I'm going to make 30 grand a year. And they were just like, WTF, we just paid for college. Like, that's all you're going to make. And I'm like, what? No, that's huge. Like,
that sounds like a lot of money when you're getting out of college.
When you're working retail, up to that point, that was a huge amount of money to me. And they were just like, oh my God, where did we go wrong? But it all worked out. And yeah, I don't think I even asked for a raise, which is so interesting because, later when I had people reporting to me, women who would march into my office and be like, I demand more money, and I was just like, wow, good for you. Like I just never thought to do it. I was just so grateful to be there.
Like I wish I had done that.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking about it. So
good.
So
go girls, get out there and ask for more money.
Get out there. Okay, so then you were a copywriter.
Yeah. So as a copywriter for through a couple entertainment president eras, helped launch Friends, helped launch Seinfeld, worked on a lot of those must-see TV campaigns, which was
Okay,
really
now
fun.
slow down and back up. What does it mean to help launch Friends? What does that look like?
For Friends, which is really interesting because Friends is where I kind of crossed into digital a little bit more. It comes full circle. Like season 1 of Friends, I was the copywriter assigned to Friends. So that meant I had to write all the print ads for the show. Premiere ads, launch ads, campaigns, all of that.
So ads, were you doing commercials or were you doing variety
print.
ads?
It was print. So at the time, it was TV Guide, it was Entertainment Weekly, People, all of that. And it was interesting because Friends was not a high testing pilot. I loved Friends from the beginning.
Well, neither was Seinfeld, right?
Exactly. And like everyone thought Caroline in the City was going to be like the huge thing. It was a really well-written pilot and really endearing and whatever. And then it just, the rest is history.
I watched it.
Friends. Yeah. Caroline in the City.
Yeah.
It was cute, right?
It was really
like
cute.
A cartoonist. And
was
she's
really
so
cute.
likable, but
Yeah.
it wasn't.
It wasn't Friends, it
zeitgeisty.
wasn't Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then eventually after years of doing that, digital started to come of age and become a real thing. And I remember in our department, it was a big deal when like the IT guy came and gave us internet access, and there were like message boards. Yeah, and you could look at message boards. And at the time, it was like, I remember looking up Buffy the Vampire Slayer because I had written a spec pilot for Buffy or a spec script for Buffy. And so I was like, oh my God, people are talking to each other on the computer from other places.
Amazing.
Like, what is this? And it was super exciting. And so I wound up transitioning. At the time, Fox was setting up their West Coast digital team. They had previously had everyone in New York, and it reported into Lachlan Murdoch then, and they were bringing in an entertainment group and their sports group. So I got a job at Fox Digital, heading up their content team, and did that for a couple of years. It was really fun. Like
Now, what did that job look like?
That was super fun because everyone was young. Like my boss, I think, was 2 years younger than me, and I don't even think I was 30, and it was like just this era of, maybe I was 30, but it was just no rules. It was just kind of, if you get stuff done, be creative. We're doing things no one's done before, how.
And you're in a giant studio.
Yeah, well, yeah, part of a big space and a big studio, and we had our offices actually were in like Architectural Digest or something, and they actually shot the pilot for 24, the original 24. We were CTU basically because it was a cool space.
What does CTU stand for?
CTU, I have no idea on 24. Do you? It was
No.
like the Central Technology Unit.
Oh, it's a
I don't
set?
know. Yeah, it was
okay.
a set.
I didn't watch 24.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
know what
no,
that
it was
is. I
like-
thought you were talking some jargon.
It was like Kiefer Sutherland's hub of nefarious activity or whatever he
Okay.
was.
24 people will know what that is.
I hope so, yeah.
Okay, so that was your office?
That was our office, and it was all open concept, which was kind of a drag, but
Way before its time.
yeah, and it just forced everyone to hang out together, and we had Ally McBeal, X-Files, a lot of big tentpole shows for Fox, which was a fairly new network then.
I loved Ally McBeal.
Oh, it's great, right? And
Yeah.
it was great for digital because there was conversation around it, and so
Well, that dancing baby thing that went crazy.
exactly.
Were you part of that?
No, I had nothing to do with that.
That just went?
It's all David Kelly. Yeah.
That was incredible.
Yeah. And we did some great things. Like we had the first live international chat for X-Files.
What does
which
that mean?
That was a huge production. So that was, a war room of like, I want to say 30 people because we had an outside company that helped facilitate it. And it was Chris Carter and a couple other people from the show doing live chat, which at the time was just text, in a bubble on a site, and
yeah.
not visual
Like
at
in
all.
a chat room of some
Yes,
kind?
exactly.
Now, in the early days of chatting online, did people behave themselves more than they do now?
I don't think so.
No, were they just awful trolls?
Yeah, I just think it was harder to find them because I don't know if you remember the original chat was you would get put in a room with 25 people, even if there were 1,000 people participating.
Right.
So you all would see the same Q&A, but you weren't interacting with everybody at the same time.
And you just
so
do
it just
random
depended on
screenings.
who was in your room. But I think there was always been trolls. since day one.
That's where they've really found their home. Okay, so how long were you at Fox?
So I was at Fox until about 2000, because that's when the bubble burst. I rode the dot-com wave. There was like a peak dot-com moment, and then it crashed a little bit. So most of the entertainment companies were downsizing their digital teams a lot, because while I had been at Fox, NBC had created something called NBCI, which was 600 people in San Francisco, and every show had its own little management team, and it was very interactive. And so when the bubble burst, Fox did what a lot of the companies did, which was fold like maybe 3 digital people into the traditional marketing team and lay off everybody else.
So everyone thought for a minute, digital's where it's at, let's do a bunch of big things and then
Right.
figure out how it made money.
Right. No one figured out the money part early enough. And that was the problem. So I was one of like 3 people who did not get laid off. They laid off my team and like most of the site producers. So we basically had a homepage producer and myself, when I just became like the only writer, and like one other technical person, and that was it. And we moved on to the lot and sat with the marketing team and did fairly traditional site updates. Like I used to write Malcolm's blog for Malcolm in the Middle, like, you know, things like that. We could still pitch
What?
things.
You mean Malcolm doesn't write that?
Well, this is pre-writer strike. So now Malcolm would write it. But yeah, I did that. I did like King of the Hill recaps. Like I was doing everything across the board.
For the website?
Yeah, for the show sites.
Is any of that work WGA?
Writers Guild
I
of
don't
America?
think so. No. I think now maybe there's an argument to be made for a new media Writers Guild affiliation, but only if it's like scripted, serialized content.
Yeah.
You know, because there's so many creators now that do that stuff all day long that there should be some kind of... But the writer's strike, you know, offered protection for basically writers on television shows to protect them from digital exploitation, which that was kind of a part of why that strike happened. So, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay, sorry. Go back, because I want to dig into that. Okay, go back.
Okay, so everything collapses. I'm folded into the marketing team at Fox. Over at NBC, they're doing the same thing. They're killing all the people in San Francisco. Like, forget it. They're putting digital under my former boss, who is still in charge of print. And they're like, hey, you should design the website since we got rid of all these people. Why don't you do the digital stuff too?
Yeah. Did you go back?
So she called me and she's like, oh my God, you need to come back because now I have to do all this digital stuff and like, I don't know.
I don't wanna.
And I also need help. She also needed writing help for, they used to do these elaborate upfront books, like physical books, for every May upfront.
Yeah. So you produced all that?
Yeah, I used to write all of that. And so she brought me back to like kind of dual report to her and the new head of NBC Digital who came from business affairs. They gave it to a business affairs guy.
How many of you would there be in a department like that?
Initially, there were 4 of us.
Because that seems like a huge volume.
Yeah. No. There were 4 of us. There was
Men,
myself.
women?
There was a female site producer. And there was another female site producer who did late night and daytime. And then there was a tech guy, like a ops guy who helped us like do the video optimization and stuff like that. And then there was a separate video guy. So maybe 5 of us initially, and then we kind of added producers as we grew. And that little core team wound up splitting off from marketing and becoming its own P&L. And, you know, that little core team grew. I was there for like 10 years, and it wound up being almost 80 people.
Wow.
Yeah, and it evolved, you know. But when we started out, back to my friends' circle of life, you know, Friends was still on the air. This was now, we're getting into like final seasons of Will and Grace and The West Wing and Frasier, and they were all going off the air.
Final for then.
Right?
Will and Grace.
Right?
Thank you, Netflix.
Exactly. So I knew people over at Friends. I had done an AFI writers program during this time frame, and Kevin Bright, who was an executive producer on Friends, ran the AFI program. And so I was like, hey, we're starting this thing called a website for friends. I'd love to come and like do a set tour and interview your production designer and like do all those types of features that you would traditionally see in Entertainment Weekly or Access Hollywood or whatever is like the stuff we were trying to do.
But do it on video?
Initially it was photos and articles or a photo slideshow with captions to tell the story. And then we evolved into like when Will and Grace had live episodes, I did a live blog from the set, which was one of the first times we'd done that, you know, and it was fun. It was like I was up in this production room and I would go wander around and then report back and, you know, like tell people what was going on.
Here's what's happening right now.
Exactly. And that just all kind of evolved into stuff that people are familiar with, you know, the normal stuff that's happening now. There was no social, right, at this time. There was no Facebook or Twitter or any of that. So people actually came to the show sites to see that kind of content and to get that behind the scenes access and read interviews and hear what was going on with their favorite shows. And so it was really fun. It was fun and our team worked really well together and we were able to convince a lot of show producers to give us access because at the time a lot of people weren't open to it.
They weren't feeling it.
Yeah. And I think the turning point for us came with The Office and Parks and Rec and 30 Rock because we worked really hard on Greg Daniels, who created The Office, to get him engaged because his show was so popular with such a niche audience, and it was perfect for internet. And you know, to his credit, he got it, and he allowed us access and allowed us, you know, the freedom to kind of do things with the talent and at the time exploit like the supporting cast that wasn't Steve Carell, you know, and didn't have the main storylines.
You know, like Mindy Kaling.
Exactly. And so it was the first show to do webisodes and we were the first group to kind of oversee that.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So you're doing webisodes that weren't part of the show, but yeah, that show totally lends itself to that.
Right? So we would spin off, I think the first ones we did were called The Accountants and featured, you know, Angela Kinsey and Brian Baumgartner and that whole group. And everyone loved it, but it raised a lot of flags, right?
How do you
for the business
do
model.
Contracts for that?
How do you do contracts? Those digital things aren't baked into talent deals back then. You know, we paid for it, but it was an extra production day that they had to account for, and the writers were writing this in their free time.
And are you paying them scale for television or new media?
Long
for
story
that
short, they weren't paid, and that's what started the strike, is because they all realized, wait a minute, we're writing this extra content that we're not going to get residuals on or money on, and NBC's going to put it on the website and have an ad.
This started the writer's strike?
It did.
Good job.
It's not my fault.
It kind of sounds like it's your fault.
Trying to do a good thing. There were more people involved than me. Lots of lawyers.
Oh my God, you are patient zero of the writer's strike.
Yeah. It's referenced there's some book about the writer's strike, and it's definitely referenced.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I've always kind of said, you know, there's all this talk of the digital. Well, we have no idea what the audience is or what the... Yes, you do. You know, every click that's happening.
It is true. But I will say, like, to the female empowerment of it all, the digital content for that show showcased a lot of the female characters. You know, Kate Flannery, Angela Kinsey, Mindy Kaling. Mindy Kaling wrote and directed several after the strike stuff, after we fixed it all, you know, figured it all out.
She went on to do very well.
She, you know, obviously knew what she was doing, but it was a way for Greg to also test his, like, oh, I have a female line producer who wants to direct an episode of The Office. Can she direct these webisodes first?
Oh, so it's like a little incubator.
It was a little incubator, yeah. And it worked. It was very mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
And it became the, you know, like toolkit for other shows. Like I could go then to 30 Rock and say, here's how we did it with The Office. What are you guys willing to do? And it works better if you task someone on your end on production to be our digital person. We had what we called digital writers embedded with these shows that were hired by the show, and usually junior writers that they wanted to kind of give an opportunity to, but that weren't quite ready for prime time. worked out. And then Mike Schur left the office and started Parks and Rec, and he initiated with us, like, okay, so what are we going to do for digital?
Yeah.
So it just became a great working relationship with a lot of these shows, and NBC became known for being supportive of that type of work and digital. I remember talking to someone who will remain nameless, but we did stuff with Scrubs when it was on NBC. We did like name the baby when Turk had the baby, and little fun, silly things, and some digital content. And I remember this person calling me once they went to ABC early on, because eventually they wound up doing a lot more with ABC, but saying like, oh, no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to talk about digital here. Like it's so different here. The culture.
Even though you've had the proven model.
Yeah. And then eventually they wound up, because Bill Lawrence is very into digital, and they wound up doing, I think, webisodes for Scrubs in the later seasons. But it wasn't happening everywhere at the same time. So
you're kind of a pioneer.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I was definitely part of a team, and we had a great, we had a female, leading the charge on our behalf. Vivi Ziegler, who oversaw digital for quite a while, came from a marketing background, really championed us within the company, which helped a lot.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, going back, I heard you did an AFI writing program.
Yes.
Were you also wanting to write like full-length TV film? What were you wanting to do?
I was hoping to get staffed on a show as a, sitcom writer. I mean, that was the dream. Because I had done a lot of spec scripts. I did the Buffy spec. I did A Third Rock from the Sun, I think, and what was that show with Joe Rogan and Phil Hartman?
Radio.
News radio. I did a news radio spec. So
That's where Lorelai Gilmore started also.
Well, there you go.
I mean, Lauren Graham.
Trivia. Yeah, so the news radio spec got me into this AFI writers program, and there was like 10 of us in the program.
So did you ever end up doing that?
No, I mean, I think out of the 10, me and one other person had full-time jobs. Everyone else, this was their goal. Like, this was their full-time thing. And, like, everyone was super successful out of that group. We still keep in touch. It's amazing. But
do you think any of that was people saw you doing what you did and thought you should keep doing that?
That is an interesting perspective on it, Julie. Like, it may have just been the fates telling me, don't.
Here, I'm going to try to make some nefarious.
I don't know. I do, like, in retrospect, because I thought about it a lot, because I was kind of crushed that I didn't, wind up this famous showrunner or whatever. But I feel like the experience was invaluable. And also, the people I met are still my friends. And I think being a staff writer on a show is very unstable, and I don't know that as my personality would have handled it. Like, I'm not into instability, and I've seen them go.
You're not a freelancer?
Oh my God, it just makes me like agita to think about it, I mean, it's challenging.
Yeah.
So unless you get on a hit show, which, Bob Daly was in our group, and he wound up running Frasier and Odd Couple most recently with Matthew Perry, and I mean, he's our little shining star, but and a sweetheart. And a couple other people were on, King of Queens. Like, there were a lot of successful people out of that group, but that's what they did full time. Like, that was their sole focus, and they had support. And
they just eat,
they
breathe,
did it.
Sleep.
Yeah, I was going to the AFI meetings. And then going afterwards it was in June, and we used to have these affiliate meetings, and I would have to go to NBC and back to work, afterwards. And so it was really,
like, my time. I'm a career people. I can't sit in a cafe and
write
all day.
I mean, I wish I could have, but yeah, I had, like, my boss was really awesome, a woman, by the way, Janesse Brewer, because she was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing that's happened to you. You need to go do this. Like, if you can come to the hotel after and still help us, great. And if not, do what you got to do.
Totally supportive of you following that?
100%.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great. I had a lot of great female bosses there. So,
did you have mentors?
Yeah, I think I consider Janesse a mentor, and Nancy McDyer, who was one of the account executives there that I worked for, who I'm still friends with, who is still at NBC in that same role, better title, but yeah, absolutely.
So, did you work with a lot of women all the time?
In that time, yes, absolutely. Like at Fox, not so much. It was a lot of dudes.
Did you have to communicate differently in those two different environments?
I will say, yes, I will say this. The thing about being at NBC as long as I was, because all told I was there 23 years. I grew up there. And part of the problem with that was I started as an intern. Mm-hmm. So the male heads of the marketing department always saw me as an intern.
Yeah.
Even when I was a copywriter, even when I came back and I was VP of digital.
You're still the intern.
I was still the intern. So that part was challenging because it was like learning to be confident with people that I wasn't.
Take me seriously now, guys.
Right? Yeah. That's challenging. I mean,
how'd you do
not
it?
Gonna lie, I don't know. I don't think I did. I don't know.
Are they still patting you on the head?
I'm still working on it. Yeah, it was hard, and luckily I had the support of, Vivi, who had known me from my intern days. She and Janess were colleagues, and that helped. And having evolved into an executive title helped. Having 6 entertainment presidents come and go while I was there helped, because you can.
And you survived.
Every time someone new comes in, they don't know your history, and like the marketing chiefs wound up changing heads 3 times, so that kind of evolved
constantly.
Yeah, so it was just also digital is such a space that people either are afraid of or curious about, and so anyone who's done it for 10 years is considered like
seasoned.
The old sage of like, let's go to the the cave and see the wise man. And so having that expertise and experience, the longer I was there, the more it was like, well, ask Carole or ask the digital team, they'll know. So then it became a little easier to kind of be confident about it. But
now, at any point did you start negotiating salary?
Oh, Julie, stop bringing that up. The only time I have successfully negotiated salary is when I went to my current job at TBS.
Good job.
That was it. And that was because I was on the phone and my husband's in the background going, hang up, walk away. No, you're not taking that. Hang up. And I'm like, okay. It's really hard. Why is it so hard?
It's hard.
Why? What are we so,
There is an entire book about it. It's called Women Don't Ask, and it's all about we have been conditioned from birth to serve people without any expectation of reward, and that we never deserve to be paid because we should be doing it for the love of helping other people. In a nutshell.
Freaking sucks.
But there's many hundreds of pages explaining it. But you're not the only one.
Yeah.
It's all of us.
No. It's really funny too, because I always just, like I said, I was always just super grateful to be there. Even when I came back after Fox, when I came back, I think I maybe asked for a certain amount, and HR was like, I don't know. And they hung up. And then,
they always say that.
And then they called me back.
I'll try.
Yeah, and it was fine. So I think that was maybe the first time I actually tried to get more money than I was being offered, and it worked. But then I was there for 10 years and I never signed a contract because my direct report was a horrible, horrible man, and I didn't want to be locked in there. So there wasn't any negotiating. It's kind of like, if you don't sign the contract, then you're going to get your 3% every year, and that's it.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, but it was worth it to just have that freedom of, if I was able to leave.
It was your exit plan.
Yes.
Your escape hatch.
Yeah.
Did you have a sense that you were paid equally to the men around you?
Oh, no.
Did you have a sense that you were not paid equally to the men around you?
Here's why, because I met my husband there.
Oh, and what did he do?
He was a VP, same level as me, eventually, and oversaw late night. And initially oversaw late night and daytime, but really
in
helped.
Marketing or
in digital,
production?
In digital production.
Oh, so very similar job.
Yeah. And he really helped launch the Late Show with Jimmy Fallon online, because it launched online first. And so he won an Emmy for that. And he's beat me at the Emmys 3 times.
Are you up against each other at the Emmys?
We were, yes. Yes. So he also started Jay Leno's Garage there. He and our boss convinced Jay to kind of do that.
Open it up, Jay. Everyone wants to see it.
Exactly. And I know for a fact he made more than me.
Exponentially more than you?
He signed a contract.
Huh.
So I think he made probably $40,000 more than me a year, if I had to guess.
Isn't that interesting? You have a control group.
And I was there longer. obviously.
No,
I was
that's not
there.
fair.
Yeah. I was, yeah.
So were you both still working there when you got together?
Yes, but we kept it a secret for almost 2 years.
As you'd have to.
Yeah. Well, we didn't report to each other, but it was more about like, ain't nobody need to know our business. You know what I mean? And we're just like, oh. So yeah, we only told people when we got engaged.
Where they're like, what? You don't even know that guy.
Like most people were like, wait, you were dating all this time? And then like maybe 3 people were like, I knew it. So, cause we didn't live together, it was like we were pretty separate and he has a child from another relationship. So he had his own stuff and I had my stuff. So
You played it cool.
Yeah, we played it cool.
And then when did you get married?
We got married it'll be 9 years in May. 9 years ago.
Wow, that's 100 years in Hollywood.
Right?
And do you have kids?
Just my stepson, Braden, who will be 16 on Monday, and he was 4 when I met my husband, so.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So you've been around the whole time.
Yeah, he's a good kid. He's good.
Yeah,
That's interesting. So yeah, so then I was basically there until the latest entertainment chief, Bob Greenblatt, came in and brought in I call them the Showtime Mafia, brought in all his Showtime executives, and they reconfigured a lot of departments, and my husband got laid off. The female producer that I mentioned earlier, who at that point was a VP as well, she got laid off. Our tech guy got laid off. Like everybody but like me and one other of the original core 4 were let go. And then I lasted 2 years before they laid me off. So
where'd your husband go?
He actually has been a very successful director and producer of automotive content. So he kind of parlayed the Jay Leno's Garage experience into his own business. So he does a lot of brand work with Shell, and he's in Texas right now doing something for Shell, and does a lot of he did a Jaguar thing last year. So
Did he become a freelancer?
He is. Yeah. So Mama had to keep the health insurance going.
That's right. That's right. So this is interesting. So I've talked to people that a lot of times the woman is the breadwinner, or actually a lot of times the woman is the breadwinner of the people I've been talking to. But it's interesting because you had the same job, the same career. So how have you negotiated like the rest of your domestic life, like your segregation of duties?
I don't know. I feel like I'm really OCD, so like I don't mind cleaning and laundry, and like I will be doing that anyway, and I don't cook. So I feel like it just was a natural, like, you're in charge of food and groceries and I'll keep the house clean, and that's kind of, how the normal stuff gets divided up, and like we have 2 dogs and we both are pretty equal on the dog stuff, walking and feeding and stuff like that. And with his son, it was a, shared custody thing. So it was like a 50-50. So that wasn't too hard to figure out. So it's been a pretty natural division.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Sounds great.
I don't know. I'm weird about cleaning though. Like he has offered.
Don't look around here.
Well, some people are just like different. He's offered to have people come and clean, and we just did a remodel in our kitchen, and our house was filthy, and my contractor was like, as part of my deal, you get a cleaning service. Like I bring in a cleaning service to do your house because I put dust everywhere in your house. And it made me so uncomfortable to have people in my house.
Did you let them in?
I did.
Did you clean after them?
I cleaned before and after them. Julie, oh my God. Robert's like, he got so mad at me. He was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just going to clean this window. He's like, no, that's what they're here for. And I'm like, I can't.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Like, I wish I could be like, yes,
hey, it's
please,
your thing,
someone
it's your
else
stuff.
do it.
Do it.
I can't do it. But I will say, just a side note.
Yes, please.
When I left NBC, because I had been there so long, they gave me this, not a life coach, but kind of a career coach, like, service.
Oh, wait, did you get laid off of NBC?
Yes.
Oh, so this was part of that package? Oh,
yes.
Tell me all about that.
So what was interesting as far as the female empowerment and, asking for what you deserve and stuff was he did this exercise where he kind of kind of how our conversation has been going, right? He starts at the beginning, like what were you into when you were a kid, and kind of lets you figure out what drove you to your point in your career now, and is that the right point to be at based on all this other stuff, or did you just wind up there and now's a good opportunity to reinvent yourself?
God, where was he last year when I needed him?
Right? It was interesting. So part of that was coaching you on how to negotiate and tips on, and I feel like that's why I did that when I went to TBS, is because I felt like I had some tools.
You were ready.
On how to do it. Yeah. And how, don't ever give them a number first, and don't be pressured into telling them what you're currently making, and
that's a hard conversation.
Hard.
Like, what is the advice? Because I've cracked every time I've gone into a phone call thinking I'm not going to say the number first. I'm not going to, and I always do.
Yeah.
Because they just ask and wait.
It's always the friendly HR person who's like, and where are you now? And you're like, making money, like
how are you supposed to answer that question?
I know.
Well, what is the range for this job?
Exactly. And they're not going to tell you. I mean, to me, it's like, they're not going to tell you, are they? Because you're not even at phase 2 of an interview yet.
I did have an interview once where she asked me first, and I tried not to tell her, and I told her, and the conversation was over.
Yeah, that's happened to me several times. You price yourself out of opportunities.
I was like, but I'm willing to talk about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I took a pay cut to go to TBS because I knew it was an opportunity that would have been, evolved into something.
Sometimes you got to get in the door.
Yeah.
And grow from there.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know, I'm curious what other women you've met with consider about titles, because I feel like titles are going out the window too,
with Netflix again?
With Netflix and Hulu, and everyone's a manager, but what does that mean? Sometimes managers are doing VP level jobs now.
With VP level salaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
it's hard. I think you just have to know. You hope everyone knows what companies are doing that, so when you try to go to your next place.
Right. It doesn't look like you went backwards.
Yeah. Like, yes, I was manager, but I made $350,000.
Right? I reported to the senior manager who ran the department.
Who was the founder and CEO of the company.
Exactly.
Oh, it's a funny thing.
Yeah.
I think we're in a period of it's all going to be evolving, especially in entertainment, which is, I was having this conversation this morning, it's kind of inflated to begin with. Compared to widget corporate America.
Right.
Where it takes you 30 years to become a vice president, and that really means something.
Right. It does. Although it felt like it took that long at NBC. It felt like, okay, it's time, people.
But it also makes sense if you only had, you only looked for a job once every 10 years maybe.
Yeah.
You weren't trying to negotiate a new job every 2 years.
That's true. But I feel like I would now. Yeah. I feel like the landscape has changed and people aren't at companies 20 years. It's very rare. It's very rare. I was a rarity at NBC, and they let a lot of good people go that had been there a long time, and that was unfortunate, I felt. Because there's something to be said about knowing the brand that well.
Experience.
And knowing the evolution of it and the experience of just being in the entertainment industry, for that long. But now with digital, it's very different. Things change every year. It's changed in the year I've been in my current job. My position's changed 3 times. So, I'm not even kidding. It's like, I don't even know what's next, what social platform's going to be next. Are we going to have to create hologram content? Probably. It's going to just play in the palm of your hand because you'll have a chip embedded in
Pretty soon we'll just take a pill.
Right?
See it all in our eyeballs.
That's it. Just while you dream, you'll catch up on, House of Cards. I don't know. But
God, would that be great?
That's a time saver.
If I'm reading and I'm falling asleep, I really would like someone then to continue reading the book to me with my eyes closed. If you could just then dream the rest of the book.
Yeah.
I think you're on to something.
It'd be good.
Yeah, that's proprietary.
Yes.
To this podcast.
Copyright 2017.
Tell me this. Are you a success?
I say yes.
Oh my God, that was good.
Why not?
Good job.
Of course.
Are you a badass?
I think I'm working on my badassery. I try to be.
How do you define it?
Strong, confident, smart, willing to take a risk when necessary, which is the part I'm fuzzy on. And also I think a team player with women, because I think there's some women that aren't. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I feel like this last year in particular has brought a lot of women together for a common purpose of keeping our rights where they are and just being allowed to be women and be equal.
It seems like a small ask, but why do we have to fight about it?
I don't know.
Every year.
But I think the positive, side effect of all that is it bleeds into the workplace a little bit. I will say the one thing I love about the TBS Turner culture is that there are high-level women that are super helpful and encouraging. Sarah Aubrey at TNT and Sandra Dewey, who oversees production for both networks. They're both very inclusive and positive, and Turner organized a group for the Women's March and is very much into giving you time if you need time off to go, protest something. Great, I mean they're very good about it.
It's the new definition of PTO. Protest time off.
That's perfect. That is perfect.
Only in LA, folks.
Right?
Only in LA.
But I can see in the year I've been there, just like women have been promoted and they're on their teams, and there have been positive things happening because of them. So that's nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you have advice for women who are just starting their careers?
I mean, internships are great. Internship worked for me. Not only did it lead to a job, but it was just a great way to learn about the industry I was interested in and to network. People that I came up with as interns, I'm still in touch with, and now they're all executive level. And I even had one of my interns wound up being the head of comedy at our studio for a while. So you just never know what that network or group is going to evolve into.
Yeah.
And just don't be afraid to ask a ton of questions. I always too was kind of like a spy. Like you want me to make 50 copies of this report for you? Okay. But I'm going to read the report. You know what I mean? Like
always
I'm going to
read the report.
Exactly. Like I'm going to research what I'm doing for you, even if it's filing, and just keep learning, and also just have a good attitude, because I used to oversee interns when I was at NBC for a while. And depending on the era, some of them came in with real attitudes, and those people didn't do well, because it's like, you have to be humble.
You're not entitled to an internship at NBC.
Right.
That's just, you're not.
Right. And I feel like there was a phase there where people had kind of that sense about them, and then other people that stood out were the ones that were so happy to be there and willing to do anything, and like really forthcoming. Like I think it was 2 days ago, I was in the elevator at work, and this gal introduced herself to me. Oh, I'm one of the new interns. Do you know where the laminating machine is? And it's like, yeah, I think it's over here. And she's like, okay, great. But like she was in it, forward about it, and courage pays off, sometimes it's hard to be, talking to people you don't know who they are, but
I think really scary when you're an intern and you're maybe 20.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a lot everyone's super smart. Everyone's confident and smart these days, I feel like.
The interns?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is true.
I don't know. I feel like there's a different, they've kicked it up a notch since I was an intern. Like, they're just, owning it. So great.
I think they get there a lot faster.
Yeah. I think so.
At least for me, it took me a long time to, last week, really.
Do you want an internship, Julia? I can hook
you
up.
I think maybe I could use an internship. Not really sure what I'm going to be when I grow up.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's growing up connected, right? Because we didn't grow up that way. So growing up, being able to see a TED Talk with one of your idols, or connect on LinkedIn with the CEO of something, that's different.
It's a whole different world.
Yeah. I think it's empowering. It gives you more opportunity.
I think it makes different possibilities, what you see is possible in your life.
Right.
Because they're real people who you can talk to.
Yep.
I think in our day, they weren't real people.
They were just mythical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you met them, oh my God.
Exactly. I remember geeking out, the person I met that I geeked out most, and I've met a lot of famous people, was Jane Pauley. I was like, oh my God, I read your book. She's who I nerded out over in college because I wanted to be a journalist and a writer and all this stuff. And I was just like, Jane Pauley just borrowed my pen, you guys. This is a moment.
Meanwhile, you're like, Jennifer Aniston who?
I know. I was like,
whatever, all those French people.
Sad, Courtney Cox. No, but I that was one person that I was like, and Katie Couric. I met Katie Couric in an affiliate conference. Same thing. Like,
Oh, I would love to meet Katie Couric.
she's adorable. Like, she's
Katie,
exactly.
if you'd like to be on the podcast, you just call me right up.
You should do it, Katie.
Yeah,
It's
I'll
totally-
promote your podcast right back.
Yeah, her and Matt Lauer. She was great.
Is there anything you haven't accomplished that you still want to?
I started writing a children's book like a long time ago about my dogs, like the adventures of Poochie and Coco, and I have 3 written that I need an illustrator. I would like to do that at some point, like get those done. My husband had one illustrated for me as a gift one year, so I have one hard copy of one, and I have no idea if they're good children's books, like I don't know, but they were fun to write, and I think that would be fun to kind of self-publish at some point. So I can
Do it.
Yeah, right?
What are you waiting for?
Any female illustrators out there?
Okay, female illustrators, contact us on the website.
Yay. Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else we haven't talked about that you think we should say? And by we, I mean you.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for women in digital. I think if you have a production background, there's a lot of opportunity. And I think if you, even as a writer, I was working with a lot of writers for these last 6 months, and they were all people that I just knew, or someone on my team knew, that we brought in because, writing short form comedy is challenging.
Yeah.
But don't discount digital, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like it's
a real thing.
It's a real thing, and there's a lot of companies creating content now in all genres, and they need all those, below the line people.
They need all the positions.
The same production as a regular TV show, just less money.
Just louder, faster, funnier.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This was fun.
You've been listening to The Other 50%, A Herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Carole Angelo for sharing her story, and special thanks to Jonathan Lucas for editing, Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. And of course on the website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for added features, bios of our guests, and the merch, and their pictures. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Other50% and Instagram at Other50% Podcast. And don't forget to check out The Other 50%, A Herstory of Tech. Thanks for listening. See you next time.